Welcome to the IGB webinar on the innovation in the casino space entitled Sharing and Shared Experiences. My name is Eva Bakun and I look after industry research for Clarion Gaming. I also oversee Ampersand, which is the Clarion Gaming's research and networking group. And I'm bringing Ampersand up because the idea for this webinar was the result of one of the Ampersand activities. Back in May, we held a number of digital conversations for Ampersand members, and one of them was on casino innovation. And the topic of sharing and community really dominated that particular discussion amongst members. So following that discussion that Carolina Peltz was part of, I brainstormed the idea of this webinar with Carolina, who pretty much then assembled today's panel and drove its framework. So I really wanted to take this opportunity to thank Carolina for the ideas and for the involvement. Now, before I hand over to Carolina, who will moderate today's discussion and will introduce her panelists to you, I wanted to let you, our audience, know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for you to listen to and share with colleagues shortly after today. You can ask your questions throughout the webinar, and we will pick them up towards the end of the session in the Q&A section of this webinar today. And that's it from me, and Carolina, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to start with introducing myself and our panelists. I'm an owner and a strategic advisor at my own consultancy called Basic Strategy, and my background is mostly from casino operations. I worked for LeoVegas, Betson, and a couple of different operators before. And I'd like to hand over to the panelists to introduce themselves and give you a little bit background of their past experience so that you understand the relevancy to this panel. Tobias, maybe I can start with you.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tobias. I am the CEO of Casino Grounds, and I've been that for the last 3 years or so. Before that, I had a couple of years as a country manager for Norway for LeoVegas. And I also, about 15, 16 years ago, I was a part of running the largest esports community in the Nordic countries. And for those not aware what Casino Grounds does, we are an affiliate company, a marketing company focusing on video content, live streaming, and sort of casino streamers. And currently, we are the biggest community evolving around video content.
Thomas, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone, and thanks, Carolina. My name is Thomas Rosander. I was most recently the CEO for Dunder Casino, but I have a long history in gaming. I worked with bwin and Mr. Green and a few others as well. I think relevant for this webinar is also my history with Electronic Arts, the video game company, where I was a marketing director and had the opportunity to introduce microtransactions and their free-to-play business with some really nice and well-known titles like Battlefield, Need for Speed, and Star Wars, and so on.
Alex?
Hey everybody, my name is Alex Tomic. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alea. Alea is an operator and also a B2B platform. Basically, we buy and resell games from any software providers, adding on top of it features like slots, tournaments, BI, and other gamification tools. We're known for having built the first virtual reality casino in 2015, and basically very passionate about anything that comes to innovation within our industry.
Thanks, Alex. Steve?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks. I am Steve Bosca, CEO of Pug Interactive, and going back about 20 years or so, I've been a gameplay gameplay designer and a video game producer here in Vancouver, Canada, and I've worked on a number of big budget blockbuster games for Disney, Electronic Arts, Vivendi, Ubisoft. These are games that have made over $650 million in revenue. I also co-founded Hothead Games. But for the last 10 years, what I've been doing is really focusing on bringing the mechanics and the design principles and some of the motivational psychology into the world of business to solve challenging problems such as customer engagement and customer loyalty, gamification. And my current company, Pug Interactive, deals with those problems, and we've also built a very sophisticated and robust enterprise class platform that's won all kinds of awards and is really kicking up some of the metrics that drive this industry forward.
Thank you. And Robin, over to you.
Hi, Carolina et al. Robin, and I'm working with a casino operator called Ichiban, just about to launch on the 1st of October. We've worked in the industry together for a long time. I was formerly the CEO of Gaming Innovation Group and the founder, and I did, prior to that, a company called Donker. It was a poker affiliate, Web2O affiliate, social network and poker forum. So I've been following the social space for a good 15 years and really excited about this panel.
Thank you. So as you can see, there is a common denominator with all the panelists today, which is why I invited them. It's passion for innovation, keen interest in what's coming, and a visionary approach to business, which I think you'll highly appreciate hearing their views on some of the matters we'll cover today. I'd like to start with the typical question opener for most panels, which is sort of the hottest subjects in the field of emerging trends for our industry. I think we've seen a lot of things happening, the likes of Megaways, Infinity Reels, sort of streaming communities growing in strength, live casino becoming even more popular in the absence of sports, and finally the new sort of game show concepts coming and taking the market by storm. I think all these things combined with outside the industry trends, where we see the growing population of video games and people just really looking for shared experiences and adopting them to further extent, given the situation of lockdown and the necessity of participating in virtual shared experiences. I think this is all making us start to wonder about the next big thing. And I'd like to hear your thoughts around it. And maybe I can start with Alex.
Well, we've seen quite a lot of things lately. We've seen streamers taking a lot of visibility within iGaming. Maybe 3 years ago, Tobias, correct me if I'm wrong, and we see even now software providers like Playtech embedding streaming into their product. I think the latest slot is Buffalo Blitz, where basically they stream a slot. It's like a live dealer, but live slot product where you can have hundreds or thousands of players playing the same slot. So this is clearly a trend that we're seeing. We can talk about a lot of features that are built by software providers. I don't think there's anything really new there. It's iterations, slots, better slots. There are a few slots that are coming out now, like Money Train 2 from Relax Gaming. That's a very big hit. The slots also that's coming on the Relax platform with the guys from Casino Ground, Iron Bank, I think. So we see some innovative slots, of course, Megaways and the latest feature. But what I really see as true innovation coming out and about to come out is coming from the platforms. Why? Because if you have all these tournaments, if you have all these social features and mechanics that are rolled out by a software provider, it still stays within the same software provider. And as a B2C operator, to be honest, I don't really like when I won't name anyone, but when my player goes in a slot by that software provider, they try to keep him within their own slots. So they cross-sell from slots to slots. So you open them your space, and then they keep the player with these tournaments and social feature within their own slots. And what I want to see is a software agnostic platform that would enable me as a B2C operator to provide these features all over the other operators. So We've seen people like Blue Ribbon doing it with jackpots, and we see a lot of other. Oryx is doing it. Actually, Oryx is the first aggregator, correct me if I'm wrong, that's pulling out slots tournaments over the game aggregator. I've heard also that I think PlayZido has done it, and the last one was, I just forgot the name now, that's doing it. So we see it's a very, very big trend that's coming up where aggregators are building this agnostic mechanics.
Okay, right. Thank you for that perspective. I think in general, when you're saying that people are trying to keep products within their platform, it's an overall trend within and outside the industry, bringing more features to sort of have more to offer as we are competing for the same time of the player. Tobias, you are involved with sort of one of those innovative platforms that we're seeing in our industry, and over the past years, you know, the engagement, the player numbers have picked up. Can you tell us a little bit more about the success and what do you think is driving it currently?
I mean, for me, it's to be completely honest, I don't really think casino streaming is super innovative. I think iGaming was falling behind on other industries. I mean, watching other people play computer games has existed, you know, 3 times as long. And the fact that nobody picked up on it in gaming before maybe around 2015, I'm super happy for, but I'm not really impressed per se, I would say. I think the key thing we're seeing is that users engage with whatever content available differently because there's so much more content. The sort of attention span is constantly decreasing. So before you would, you know, read a big text on Facebook, but today, you know, Twitter came a limited amount of characters. Instagram came basically removing the text. Now we have TikTok that is just this, you know, endless scroll of something happening all the time. So I think the way users, you know, expect the content to be presented is constantly changing. And I think it's, you know, super excited to see this. And I think understanding this is also the key to building a community. I think a lot of the taboo has been broken down a bit. I think casino streamers is super important in the sense that it actually gives a face to the industry. It's actually more trustworthy to be able to, you know, ask a knowledgeable person questions and so on. So I think there's a lot of, you know, interesting potential in this change of behaviors. And then I would also like to see, you know, on the product side, I would like to see more, you know, community-focused products. Something that in a bigger scale allows you to, you know, share the experiences more efficiently. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen.
So basically what we are saying, what you are saying is that the lonely, sort of alienated, anonymous gaming experience needs to move on slightly and make space for the new kid on the block, multiplayer, more social, more community oriented.
Well, kind of coming from the gaming world back in the days as I did, my experience when you went to these computer parties and actually met up with the guys, you know, you've been playing with for years online and never met, my experience is that, you know, some of the most outgoing people online are the most quiet in real life. So just because, you know, face to face, they're not really this super extroverted person, you know, give them a keyboard and a dark basement and nobody can see them and they will talk, you know, they will be the dungeon master of their game or whatever. So I think, you know, everyone is different, and allowing to engage behind a computer is opening up doors for people that normally wouldn't interact that much.
So picking up on the sentence, you know, everyone is different, I'd like to hear from Steve, because I know we discussed it slightly before. You know, your experience with video games sort of taught you that maybe it's not that black and white, either multiplayer or single player. So could you tell us a little bit about your views?
Yeah, and Carolina, I'm very used to being called different, so I appreciate that. So I may even attack the question a little bit about what is the next big thing, and almost rephrase it as what is the big idea that's ahead of us now. Because when I think back to, you know, 30 years ago, you could have said, well, Pac-Man came out and gaming is going to be transformed by maze games, and maze games will be the next big thing. And then, you know, first-person shooters come out, and none of that has changed the fact that Tetris is still fun to play. So when I look ahead in this broader industry in general, what I'm seeing is this evolution towards us needing to be broader in our view and ensuring that what we're really giving players is a choice. And even in some of the things that you know, my two fellow panelists have already mentioned, I completely accept that those are very valid things for players to get excited about, but I don't think that on their own, they're the only things that we should be looking at. And when I got into the gamification of these communities, what I felt was the biggest thing that needed to be addressed was providing flexibility and solutions. And that's what we built our platform around, is to allow us to be able to go into any business environment and be able to look at the needs of the community and the business outcomes that are expected, and to try to assemble something that makes the most sense for that community. And again, this goes back to just my gaming design days. You would look at a scenario where you had a community and you had maybe a type of game or an intellectual property that you wanted to work with. And to be told that there was only one way that you could do it would be very limiting. So I think I'd like to, you know, sort of challenge all of us to say that choice is more important, and making sure that the broader experience is so encompassing that it allows users to feel a sense of autonomy and control within that experience.
Thomas, would you second that? I know you've got experience with building sort of engagement solutions for both multiplayer games, but also working in the gaming industry for a couple of years now, for more than a couple of years, and building tournaments based on singular activity. Do you second Steve's views, or do you think it's one or the other?
No, I totally agree with him. I think that I mean, it was not, if you take multiplayer, for instance, like then that was not something that the gaming industry had from the beginning. It was something that that came because the users and the people making the first games, they were dreaming about it. They were dreaming about playing with their friends and, you know, be able to share and so on. And now that business has evolved into something where we take it for granted that you're in your mobile game, you can share it with your Facebook friends, or you can co-op with your clan in Division 2 or whatever it might be. So it's definitely interesting to see how that has evolved. And I think if we relate that to the iGaming business, we have, you know, we're close. And if we're talking about the next big thing, I think definitely this could be one of the things, because it's still the transformation of gambling from offline. It's still missing that step. If you go to a casino, you're still you're gonna sit down with your friends at the poker table, or you play craps. This is an enormously social experience, and all that has the digital transformation of gambling has still that element missing. And why not this year? You know, why not now?
I'm exactly as I thought I would be. I'm seeing that there's an element of the technology enabling us to new things. And I think we talked about that different products lend themselves differently to different functionalities, whether they're single player, multiplayer. We discussed sort of this new series on Netflix, High Score. In one of the episodes, they're showing a major breakthrough in development of games where you could add graphics to a role-playing game being just lines of text. And that was like, hallelujah for the games industry. And it sort of feels, wow, if we lived in those times in the past, it would have been so much easier to come up with all those great ideas than now that everything has been developed. But at the same time, the technology enables us to do so much more. And I think craps and the social aspect is a good example, because you know, with the traditional single player setting without any social feature, I don't think the game would have had a chance. Now with the technology, the video streaming advanced, the actual latency of video, and being able to add the multiplayer functionality, and US market opening up, so all these factors added together, it's got a much bigger chance to sort of take the market by storm. I think. From Robin, I know that we've discussed previously that you believe that some of these social features and functionalities aren't new, that this isn't really this year's type of thing. What is the new thing about the multiplayer, about the community part of it that is different for our industry?
Right, Carolina. So first, I'd like to say so refreshing to sit in a panel again and not talk about regulation and rather talk about stuff that is value accretive. The slide is today the next big thing, and I'll take a stab at it. I think let's go bigger picture. And if you look historically at the trends that has emerged into like a proper value accretive feature, whether that be how gaming went into mobile or pay and play and so forth, it has always been driven by sort of the stars aligning. Suddenly mobile devices has been good enough to have an enjoyable gaming experience. There has been 3G coming, all the things that come together, and suddenly it happens. And if you look at that bigger picture right now, there is a lot going on. And if you start by seeing how people are sharing their life on the internet, it is unprecedented. TikTok, I don't know how many users they got. I think you mentioned them, Tobias. They had, I think, more than 1 billion users coming onto the platform last year. And people are sharing things they would never have done before. So sort of the intimacy space and it's quickly evaporating online. At the same time, you have 5G coming, you have videos being compressed even more and more. And I think the next experience coming online in gaming is going to be social for sure. And what's worth mentioning is I don't think it is going to be an entirely new experience. I think you're going to take the default very good gambling platforms there already is, the operators that are already doing things really good. And I think you're going to add a few features to those platforms already that's really going to drive the experience forward and put a better face to the industry. It's already started and it's going to come. With what was before, it's not new. We already had jackpots. That's kind of a social feature. We already had tournaments. But what I think is going to come is shared experiences, people playing together.
And I'll just add to that too, because what I'm hearing, I fully agree with that. When you are looking for the next big thing, what you're trying to do is build upon the existing things that you have. And we did that in the game industry as well, because we started with what only could be a solitary experience because the computers weren't networked at the time. And as we started to exhaust all of our possibilities there, what we started to do was say, hey, this would be better if other people could. And the could is where it started to branch, because for some people that meant it would be great if people could see how great I'm doing. And for others, it would be great if I could share this experience and interact with other people. And then there's a spectrum in between that. So again, this idea that I'll probably keep harping on, that we want to give people choices, is a very powerful one. And even when you step into the next big thing, you want to make sure that you're looking at the entire landscape of what that is and have a different, there's different strategies. You can differentiate, or you can have sort of a broader view on it. And that's what I think I'm hearing from the panel right now.
So what I wanted to add as well here is for those of the sort of participants that maybe are not discussing those trends daily and are not as immersed in the subject, I just want to clarify that by social, we don't mean sort of social media. And by sharing, we don't mean sharing the wins or bragging. I think it's all part of the experience, but we're discussing more social in the meaning of interaction together, and sharing in a meaning of experiencing something together. And I think the reason why sort of we have people with some video games background and we refer to video games is I'm a really big believer is that the fact that the population grows up with video games, and video games are much more sort of sharing oriented and community oriented. This is what's driving the emergence of this trend at the moment, because the population is so big that pretty much everyone of our future players have interacted with video games or had a video games console at home. Now, there is a lot of criticism around blurring the lines between video gaming and gambling. And maybe I would like to hear from Steve on sort of whether you support that criticism or whether you think that the lines can blur, because a lot of people are saying the main element missing from gambling is the narrative and the story. So can the experience be as engaging, or can it take on the other elements if it's missing that core bit?
I have a pretty strong view about that because I've been asked this before, because this has been an issue in games as well. How important is narrative? And here's my view on it. So in the video game industry, when you're working on a blockbuster game, the failure rate, the rate at which games don't even make their money back is 80%. In the more casual games like mobile games, it's way higher than that. So we'll put that in one category. If you go to Hollywood, big blockbuster movies, 80% of big blockbuster movies don't make money. So if you care about story, there's nobody that's going to do it better than Hollywood, and they're only successful 20% of the time. If you care about interaction and gameplay experience, only 20% of those are successful. Now what you're trying to do is combine both of those and be a good game and tell a good story. With a 20% success rate on each, you have to multiply those probabilities together, and you drop down to a 4% success rate. So my preference is always to make sure that you're doing one of those extremely well before you even consider adding the second part to it. And do I believe that it's necessary? I absolutely do not believe it's necessary. Do I think it can help? It can help, but it's going to be really hard to do. And some people can do, like even in video games, Grand Theft Auto is a great playing game, and it also has a great branching narrative. But it's hard to do, and there are a very, very small number of companies that can consistently do that. So I would prefer to, again, allow the perspective to be a bit more broad, and not to believe that you have to have something like a narrative to enhance your core experience. Make sure the core experience is on target with your audience, and yeah, it doesn't have to be a one or the other, I don't think.
Sure. Thank you. I wanted to ask Tobias, because I know that you guys, with the nature of streaming, you remove sort of the center stage or the main actor from, or you share the center stage between the game and the actual hosting streamer. Through that, I assume you are able to attempt to build some narrative and story around the session. Can you tell us about your experience with that, and how do you guys do it?
Yeah. So like you said, the main stage is actually the gameplay, while the video feed of the streamer himself is kind of secondary in terms of taking real estate of the screen. So essentially, the average stream, so to say, has traditionally just been, this personality playing slots, engaging with the audience. But over the years, we're naturally experimenting with various, narratives or missions, so to say, for the stream. And my experience is that those add significant value for the audience. It drives a lot of additional engagement. By far, all of our most popular streams that had a very clear narrative with a clear sort of goal of the stream are a charity stream being a great example, which is one of the by far most popular stream we ever had, raising about £50,000 for the COVID relief fund. But on a more, the week-to-week basis, so to say, we have various concepts. So we have Table Games Tuesday for one of our streamers, where every Tuesday's table games only. We, up until COVID hit wave 2, we had Dragonara Thursdays, where we actually live stream from the VIP area there, engaging with real dealers. But the more normal narratives we do is the bonus hunt is a great example, where the streamer starts off with X amount of balance, let's say 5,000 euros, and they play a game until they get a bonus, and then they exit the game and save it. And we have something we call a bonus hunter tool, which they input, the name of the slot, the stake, and so on. And then on the screen, this shows, how many bonuses is gathered, the value of them, and so on. And then once the streamer has played up all their money, their balance, and they have X amount of bonuses, they open them back to back. So you will essentially have 20, 30, 40 minutes of pure, a prime time of gambling, which would be, to play the bonus feature. So it creates this, tension, the build up, the excitement, we've gotten more bonuses or less bonuses than usual. Let's make sure to make this. And then there's another example which is quite interesting. We had an exclusive launch with Big Time Gaming some years ago, Danger High Voltage, and we actually set up a custom sports bet where you can bet on the results of the first 100 spins. So you can bet, how many bonuses will he get, the max base game win, will it be between 100, 200x, 200, 400, and some were 1000x plus with a high odds and so on. And what we noticed in the betting patterns was that the best value bet, which was about the middle, was the least popular ones. So people either bet with him, expecting 1000x plus or 5+ bonuses on the first 100 spin. Is very unlikely, but very nice result. A lot of people bet on those, but then you have the ones that bet on 0 bonuses. Your max win is of 100 spins will be 15x or something like that. So people like to engage with that narrative differently. But at the end of the day, whether you're rooting for the streamer or against him, from my point of view, you're still watching and engaging. So it's all fun either way. So there's a lot of ways to experiment with this, and I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff, coming now that people have really opened their eyes of the community part of iGaming.
Oh, I think something that is linked very closely with narrative is the context. And my next question around context is for Alex. You built quite successful sort of tournament engines in the past as well. But I think the main difference between what I see, at least, between single player, multiplayer experiences is the competitive context versus collaborative content. When you're playing video games like Tetris or the Mario, it's all about getting the high score yourself and progressing through ranks. Now in multiplayer games, you've got leagues, you've got teams, you've got ability to team up and help each other. In our context of gambling, again, is this now going to move to players playing together and trying to collaboratively achieve a result, or do we still have space for competitive play and a more traditional model?
I think there's a reason. If we consider that online casino is 60-80% slots, there's a reason why social casino never worked, except for social casino. When we speak about social casino, we mean about free coin casino on Facebook. Why it never really worked? It worked in another way with the streamers, where you have a streamer playing and other people looking. The reason why it doesn't work, the reason why when you go in a land-based casino, the slot player is alone on his side, they look at each other, of course. You have a big win, the other guy, they look at you, but we don't play together. It's because there's a little bit of shame there. Why there's a shame? You play against the house. You're alone with your slot, and you play against the house. And when you play against the house, there is this feeling of sometimes being the, let's say, not in a not nice way, the casino bitch. And you don't share that. When you're a poker player, you play with other players, you have chance, you have skills, you're a cool guy. When you're a slot player, you're not a cool guy. You can be seen as a cool guy when you play roulette because of James Bond, but it's not something cool. It is gonna become cool and it is gonna become social only if we change one fundamental thing: when the player has stopped gonna play against the house. When the house is gonna take a rake, like in a poker tournament. And then everything's gonna change, and then we can unlock this quantum leap towards social gaming in slots, which means a slots tournament where there's a pool in the middle and players that put like €5 to enter. There's 100 players, there's 500 euro to win, and basically they play slots, but the RNG doesn't make them play against the house or wins against the house, but it's gonna go in the leaderboard, and here you're gonna see who made the biggest number, and it's gonna take the pot. And that's competition. And you can see it in collaboration where they play together. Then it's against the house, but they can also play together in team against each other. when we are going to able to shift from player against the house to player against players, or teams of players together playing against teams of players together, here is going to be a change. Here's the shame is going to go away. Here we're playing a real competitive, collaborative, social game where the house is not the master, as the player is the beach, where the house is just organizing an event like on a poker table. When we will be able to change that dynamic, first of all, we're going to have much more players. The spend per player is going to be much smaller. It's going to be like non-entertainment. They're going to come and spend 50 or 100 euro per month. They're going to play against each other. They're going to play together. They're going to play together against each other. There are going to be people betting on them, okay? And you're not going to have anymore this image of the casino, the house being seen as a predator that's here to suck the blood out of you. That's the big problem we have today. When we'll understand that, casino will become social.
I think it's super interesting context idea. Now you can't deny the boldness of your ideas. I think a couple of people operating in regulated markets are probably hoping there's no regulators in this webinar, not to give them additional ideas for the rake. But I think there's different context products. You know, there is you know, blackjack is a game that I think if it remains playing against the house, it can still be perfectly sociable. Because yes. I think that common sort of denominator of a common enemy also lets people interact, and a lot of people, yeah, a lot of people criticize the fact, like, if you believe so much in social, how come the social interaction hasn't taken off more on live casino? And I honestly believe it's due to the tools that are available to players, and that it's not that easy. I mean, you can either talk on chat or you can play because the chat overlay takes over your playing interface, and it's disruptive to your gaming experience. It isn't complementary. And I think if it was easier, if the UI was designed with interaction in mind, it could totally take off. I spent years working as a dealer in land-based casino, and especially in markets like US, where it's more about entertainment than it is about beating the house. The interaction was visible. In Vegas, you know, how they portrayed in movies is often how the blackjack, the craps, the roulette tables look, where people go and have fun. Steve, I know that you also had a couple of views on different context of collaborative versus competitive, you know, given the rise of poker recently and so on.
Yeah, for sure. And even just building on these ideas and thinking back to the traditional casino and how people approach that. There's a certain type of person that's always going to go to the casino and expect it and want it and desire it to be a solitary experience. It's a place where they go to get away, and they'll hide in a corner. And even if they win, they don't want people to see that they win. It's just an escape for them. And I think it really comes down to personality types. We actually, when I was designing pure games before, we used to start with personality types, and we would design to them. We would use things like Myers-Briggs type indicators and really understand what it is that's motivating somebody intrinsically to participate in something. And even when you move into a multiplayer context or environment, what you're trying to find is those little triggers. So, you know, we talk about things like poker. Poker is a social game. The cards are almost irrelevant. It's a game about you know, bluffing and lying and posturing, and it's a game that brings your personality out. Craps is a very different experience from that, where we're all trying to win together. It's not a competitive experience as much as it is a collaborative one where you can cheer each other on. And then there's this like sort of third dimension of the social aspect, which is I want prestige. I want to be recognized. I want to be at the top of the leaderboard. And there's probably more. So that's just really my quick look at what are we moving into as we become more visible to each other in the experience or in the context of gaming. And again, I don't think it's any one thing. You know, I appreciate Alex's point of view that there are new things that we're going to want to unlock and give people an opportunity to experience that. But it's always going to come down to the personality type and whether or not that personality type is drawn to that particular form of interaction or experience.
Okay, thank you. Now I had a question for Robin and Thomas. You both held sort of operator CEO roles. As a CEO, we know that profit and loss, sort of bottom line matters. So when it comes to augmenting the gaming experience, again, with tournaments, with the likes of bonus features like Risk had at Gig, you know, all great. But how can we build a business case for these sort of innovations, and especially when it comes to social element of gaming and changing the nature of play, the way to play? Robin, what benefits do you really see of introducing such features and educating players to use them? You're mute.
I'm saying for the audiovisual test for this webinar, I mentioned how in 1999 I came across a game called StarCraft, and I downloaded a single player, and I played it through, and it was really fun. And then I shelved it for a while until a friend of mine introduced it to me again, but then in the context of a LAN party, like it was called back then. And he showed me some videos of how this had turned into a scene in Korea, and there was people doing it for a living. And later on, there was a documentary on Norwegian TV about people doing it for a living. And the last time I played that game was a week ago. And 20 years of retention. And I think that gives you a good idea of the value that social can really add to this industry. And beyond that, it is obviously the marketing potential. Like I mentioned, my friend actually introduced me to it because it was a social experience. And without going into the concrete mechanics and how to solve this, I have some ideas of how we're going to get it done. Other people have other ideas. I think that's going to really take off and be something. To your other question as to the gamification mechanics, I don't think I'm revealing like a state secret by saying that when Risk launched tournaments, it affected NGR with about 13% and up, and that was like on like. And you know, that was obviously not the first one to come with tournaments, and yeah, I think that shows the potential of community features on an operator.
Okay, Thomas, maybe I can get your view, because I know you've had to build a couple of business cases for your projects previously. You know, how do you go around justifying something like this and showing the real value of it, apart of retention that Robin talked about?
The most difficult business case I ever wrote was already at EA, when we were trying to convince them to actually use their IPs for iGaming. It failed, even though I think the business case was absolutely awesome, because the revenues they would be able to make with that was great. I think to turn back a little bit to what when Alex was talking, actually, I was just thinking about esport, and I think esport is it's totally trending now, mostly because of COVID, but it was due for a long time to come around. And the interesting thing with it is that they have really proven that multi-gamer is working. I mean, it's built on that. And now when the iGaming business is starting to suck this up, it's super interesting to see if they're actually gonna not just put gambling, you know, betting on it, or make something simple of it. The iGaming business can learn so much, because the esports guys, they already know how to engage, they know how to make a narrative, they know how to make a story. So I'm really hoping, I'm looking forward to see how that's gonna smear off on our business.
I think one aspect that shouldn't be underestimated is also responsible gaming aspect, and we discussed it during trial. You know, making the experience less alienated, having sort of community look out for you, and maybe helping you stay in control. You know, those features I think are in demand by the industry, especially in highly regulated markets. What I wanted to ask Steve is, you know, going to your experience from, I know that you're a professor at the university and you teach sort of video games, if you can teach video games, psychology and everything. But do you really think that this is the right way to try to attract? And I'm not saying attract video games demographic, because this is not what we are discussing. We are discussing attracting younger demographic that by default has grown up with video games. Is that the right approach? Because we discussed the potentially IP deals where we can do branded games. You know, the likes of Witcher and Fortnite are never going to happen or anytime soon. So when it comes to other solutions, are we on the right track?
Yeah, so even in a broader sense, I've swung back and forth on a related view to this, because when we first started applying some of these gamification mechanics to the gaming audience, like the gambling audience, I came in with an assumption that they were going to have a lot in common with each other, that you'll be able to just apply some of our psychological principles and just move them over. The motivations were similar. And it was kind of a slap in the face a few years ago to realize that that wasn't necessarily the case, that there were some very, very glaring differences. And as I began to appreciate those differences, what I then started to realize was the similarities again. So again, I've kind of gone through this evolution, and it's the same sort of idea now with attracting a younger demographic. So really all of the kids today have grown up playing video games. So I have this view of the younger, the millennials and everybody who are just so desperate to experience things in a playful way, and I love that. However, when I think about it in the other sense, I've never met a single person in all my years of living that didn't like to play. Even my grandmother would play solitaire on her Windows computer. So we are instinctively wired to enjoy play. Play is how we learn in a non-threatening environment. It's, play is a simulation of something. So what I really believe fundamentally is that you just need to take a similar kind of approach. You have to look at what is creating enjoyment. And again, that starts with an understanding of the person's personal motivations, and you build upon that. As long as you feed that, you're going to get a great response from them. And as long as you're open to the criticism that they give you, and you can adapt quickly, that you don't look at everything like, oh, well, I built this hammer, so everything must be a nail. You have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable, and you have to look for patterns, but start with the personal motivations.
I think that one thing I wanted to ask Tobias about is repeat business, repeat visits, because at the moment, when it comes to retention, we are lacking differentiation tools to help retention at casino operators. I mean, the price wars and bonuses, the content, everybody has pretty much the same. The execution of the releases could differ, the interface can differ, but I think it is the quality and the engagement of the community that could become a very big differentiator for players, depending on which community they want to be part of. And I think that will not be left to the community itself. It will also, there will be also a space for an operator to shape that community through leading the engagement. When it comes to your audience, Tobias, do you see repeat customers at the main game releases, and do you see engagement sort of growing with people coming back to your sessions?
Yeah. I have audiences, big, key members of our community that I've known since 2016 at this point, and some of them are by far, still the most active people in the community. Before it's easily found on Google or, a big mainstream thing to actually find us casino streaming, you would be actively Googling for, casino video content and stumble across us. And if you happen to like the streamer and the concept, you tend to start watching, and then you build, a relationship to the person or the community through those ways. So I think definitely, there's a lot of loyalty. I think there's a lot of stuff operators can do. One thing I did, which I personally still think is genius, when I was at LeoVegas, was that after I finished my workday, sort of a 8 to 4 thing, I went home, I ate, and at 8 o'clock every day, Kim, our founder, he started streaming, and I went on there as LeoVegas Tobias. I was there present. I replied to any questions they might have, and I said to everyone, you have a problem with anything, you reach out to me. Kim said it on stream. I got hundreds of personal messages on Twitch, and I sat there and I answered every single one of them. It was taking me 3-4 hours a day, and a lot of people, can I have 10 euro free bonus money? And I looked at their account and I was like, this is a good player, I'll give him 25. And the thing is, if I give him 10, he would be super happy, play them and lose them. But when he asked for 10, sort of begging, and I give him 25, he will tell the chat, fucking LeoVegas is the best casino ever. you know. So I paid 50 euros extra with 35x wagering, but I got positive exposure for the 2,500 people watching. You know, it was the cheapest marketing efforts Leo has ever done, I can guarantee you. And I gave away, you know, hundreds and hundreds of free spins every time. Every time somebody on the forum wrote, you know, I have a problem with Leo Vegas, this is happening, or I think they're stealing my money, my withdrawal hasn't been processed in 4 days, they would be an army of people I gave more than they asked for coming in to protect. And, you know, I know these guys, they're legit, you know, they're trustable. No doubt. Even when people, you know, say Leo Vegas is scamming me, and they're saying something that is usually not true, and the army will still be here, and they will tell that person that makes the forum thread, you know, I think you're lying. This is bullshit. I know Leo, kind of. So I think things like this, you know, to engage directly, the ones that manage this, the sort of word of mouth effect you will get from those efforts are, you know, worth so much more. First time I signed up at Leo, I asked one of my best friends, I said, I need a new place to play, because another one operated by one of you guys actually didn't treat me too well at some point. And he told me Leo was a good place to go because he broke the wagering terms by betting 8 euro spins, and it was a 5 euro max bet. And he forgot because he usually play around 10. And he reached out to customer support. They said, you know, I've looked through your gameplay. It seems like you normally play at these levels. You get your withdrawal. And when one of my best friends tells me this, I have instant trust, and I instantly like the brand. I ended up starting playing there, and 1 year later, I was moving to Malta to start working there. So, you know, word of mouth essentially, you know, got me to Malta.
I think word of mouth and power community is undeniable. I mean, Casino Meister power and influence, you know, over the years, you can't just question that. I just think that technology now enables you to take it to the next level. Imagine sort of a game session hosted by Brian himself, although I doubt he'd be up for it, and a couple of big influencers from Casino Meister. They would definitely have a really strong following, and people would want to be part of it. So it just gives you this way of interacting on a different level than just on forum or chat that is not really real time. But now, as with every innovation, you know, there is always question of timing. When is the right time? When is it too early? Robin, you know, you go after one innovation after another, never rest on your laurels. So when is it the right time? When do we know that the market is ready for it? When are we not afraid that it's going to flop because of the adoption rate?
There's only one way to find out. I think we can, you know, I can try to be Nostradamus, but like I said earlier in the call, I think the stars are aligned for social in every aspect. And if we think it is, if we think that sort of the millennial generation and the generation Z is born as digital natives, I showed you guys a video after the last call of my 7-year-old son who had been challenged by a girl in the schoolyard to PvP. So they don't fight anymore, they PvP in the schoolyard, which if you don't know is, you know, one-to-one fighting within massive multiplayer online games. And, you know, these guys are used to sharing experiences online now. And, you know, is it the right time? Do we need to wait another 1 or 2 or 3 years? You know, there's only one way to find out. You need to go at it with your best and try to hit the right mechanics and hit the nerve and then hyper scale it if you do.
Thomas, how you know, last year we were talking a lot, last 2 years actually, about perception of skill and skill in games, which is sort of another mechanic that is blurring the line with different type of games to attract younger demographic, maybe respond to changing consumption trends. How is that doing? Do you think this was the right time for the studios to start experimenting, or is the market slow at catching on?
First of all, I usually say that innovation is easy and timing that's the one we should worry about. You know, you can always come up with something, but we have seen so many companies and ideas, they disappear because you just miss it. And then the year after, somebody does the same thing, it works. I think that I'm wondering with Alex is talking a lot about our slots manufacturer and the stuff they're doing now. Something that's was not traditionally in the regular gaming either, but came with all the free-to-play business, because the free-to-play games were something you had a social community together with the players. So in a way, as soon as the game was launched, that's when you actually started building it for real, because then the players were constantly telling what things they wanted in the game, and the developers are listening. And I remember we had for the majority of the studios, we actually had the producer and developers streaming, where they the players could ask questions and so on. And we also had something that was called the staggered launch of the games, and this was just to get the feedback and not take so much risk. Steve was saying like it's 80% they fail, and it is like that if you have the big approach that movies might be difficult, but classic video games, you like EA, they put in a few $100 million and then they hold their thumbs until it's out, and then maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But with the free-to-play games, we could do it bit by bit. So you do something, you release it to a small group, and then you see if it works, and if it hits the KPIs, you continue. And then the most important KPI is like, are they going to come back the next day? Because that means basically they're liking the game. And I'm like, wouldn't this be possible to apply on slots development as well? Why take the risk? Maybe it's too cheap to build it. Maybe it's too easy to go volume instead. I don't think it benefits the players though.
Right. Alex, you build the VR casino early on, the first one, maybe the only one. Was it too early?
5 years ago? 5 years ago. When I think about it, it's crazy. If you would ask me, should I build a VR casino now?
Beautiful. I still think
no,
so.
it was beautiful, and we invested more than 1 million there, and you didn't see the second version of it, which is just, I mean, I remember when I've tested the second version 2 years ago. I put the headset on, I was there. It's an Art Deco, beautiful place. The integration with the slots and the 3D environment is just crazy. I was crying just out of beauty. Still too early. And I would love, I mean, we have all the software here already. We could refurbish it for the next Oculus Quest 2 that is going to be launched soon. I acquired Oculus Quest 1 year ago. It's a plug and play device. It's just crazy how easy it is to use. The Quest 2 basically is going to bring you the same thing that was bringing you the PC generation headset in a single headset thing. So, and I was talking with Facebook guys back in time 5 years ago, and I said maybe in 2 years it's gonna come. We're a little bit too early in 2 years, you know, man. Inside we know it's about 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
So let's say 2022. We did it 7 years earlier. It hurts. It hurts because you work a lot. You could have built so many other things, invest your money, I mean your focus, etc., etc. So innovation is a beautiful word, but it can hurt a lot, really. Actually, if you ask me, do I think VR in casino and VR in China is going to be something? It's going to definitely change everything, change our lives, etc., etc. But maybe in 5 years, I don't know. So yes, very much too early. I mean, we are the example of what should not be done in terms of innovation, definitely.
No regrets though. Like I think it was worth trying, and hopefully you'll be able to revive this at one point. Steve, you can also tell us maybe either about finding the right timing to launch something, whether that's from your video games experience or with Pug, or a flop of judging the timing, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I think timing is an interesting question. The notion of innovation and timing, even just in the sense of business in general, when we look at the notion of first mover advantage, it's a bit of a fallacy. It's not just about getting the timing right. When you look at the MP3 players, so Creative Labs had beaten Apple to market with an MP3 player, the Diamond Rio 500, I think it was called. I actually had one. And they had done a good job of creating a MP3 player, but they were missing a couple of things. And there's a strategy that you can apply or adopt, which is to either get to market fast and fail often and try to adapt on the fly, or you can do what Apple did, which was sit back and watch other people fail and then come with a single solution that includes the software that Diamond didn't. So it was the iTunes experience that really gave Apple the edge. But up until then, it was anybody's game. And we've been in that situation now for, well, now things are better because the market has finally caught up to what we built. But years ago, what we had was way ahead of the market. And now we have an enterprise class solution, and enterprise are looking for flexibility and security and scalability, but we had way overbuilt our platform. So a few years ago, it was very difficult. And if we hadn't found a way to keep the lights on and just stay in business, then we wouldn't be in the position now, which is having something where COVID and the pandemic have accelerated the market's need for what we have. But if that hadn't happened, we may still be, back the way we were a few years ago, just waiting for the market to catch up to us. So you have to have a strategy, and you have to have some plan Bs and Cs of how to get there. And yeah, I've got plenty of too early to market stories, unfortunately.
Right, thank you, Steve. And my last question is for Tobias. Before I let you answer, I think it's worth to give a big shout out to all the streaming guys for the COVID charity stream. Well done, and congratulations on the money raise. I'm not going to let you talk about your success because the reason why you are in this panel is because we're talking about the right timing for streaming. So tell us a bit about an epic failure of yours to do with timing or launching something too early.
I mean, we haven't really had that many, epic failure because we haven't really, launched too much first in that sense. But I think in regards of timing, when I started up talking about, streaming within LeoVegas, even before they invested 51% in Casino Grounds, nobody, had any idea what I was talking about. They nothing, didn't understand it. And I encourage everyone to, watch 15 minutes. And
I've got to admit, I was totally clueless back then.
I'll speed it up. Anyway, I think, now when I'm at the conferences and I have people that are walking around with flip phones and sending faxes and asking me about what's going on with the Twitchers, I think the market is ready, basically. It's some of the people that ask me about it, knowing that some of it they shouldn't, and when they do, then the market is ready for this.
Cool. Well, I'm not sure whether we had any questions because I think majority of questions that came through were answered through the panel. If you guys watching want to ask any questions, you can type them in chat. We're going to give it a couple of minutes just to see that no one maybe was not unaware of the chat function. Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping up. Let me just come have a look at the chat if anything is coming.
Yeah, Carolina, I think it's hi, it's Eva Bakun here. Again, so I think it's actually spot on your choice of panelists because as I can see the questions coming in, they have all been, or most of them have been actually answered throughout. So I'm just gonna kind of quickly mention what some of those questions were about in case you guys want to add something or elaborate on the discussions that you've already had. But there was a comment or a question here about the land-based casino innovation and whether any of those sharing and community-driven products can be introduced in the land-based environment or vice versa. Whether there are any experience here to be shared between online and land-based, and particular kind of around the pandemic and obviously. The restrictions on social aspects of gambling in the land-based environment. Speaking of COVID, there was a question about how this might accelerate some of the choices that casino operators might be making in reference to what you, Alex, were talking about. I was talking about with your launch that might, as you said, might have been 5 years too early. And then finally, something around responsible gambling consideration for all of these social and community-driven products. And actually as well about free-to-play products, social casino offering slots from the real money market to widen the audience, and what your views are on this. And actually I can see here a question as well for Tobias. Agree that streaming isn't super innovative. So what's the next great thing to do on Twitch and streaming? So if you guys want to pick up any of those questions or comment or elaborate, then please feel free to do so.
Tobias, you pressed on that question, so go ahead.
Yeah, I have actually two things. First, on the responsible gaming part, one thing I've noticed a lot with the community is that by breaking down the taboo of talking about gambling, that includes responsible gaming, we get enormous amounts of feedback from players, thanking us for actually having people to talk to about this. I think it applies for anything that is taboo in the world, that the only way of, educating people is to talking about it and be open, honest, and sharing experiences, good or bad. So I think it's an important step in that direction. Could you repeat the other question? It was, the streaming wasn't innovative, and what's the next big thing
on Twitch was the question.
That is a very expensive question.
That's the question I keep asking you, Tobias, and you keep not answering.
What I can say is that we're launching our game now for Q4, almost slipped up there, and there are some other things coming at the end of the year. So I think watch our space from around the start of November and out 2020, and there's going to be a couple of things in that category.
I can perhaps take the question of land-based really quickly, because I think land-based is sort of a precursor of what online is getting at, because it's all possible. You don't need advanced technology to enable shared experiences in an environment where people can interact with each other by default. So in Vegas, you find many slot machines with double or triple sofas in front of them, letting people to sit as a group and sort of exchange spinning the button. It's not uncommon for people to pool money and sort of deposit the money into the machine together and just exchange pressing. You've got craps, hugely social, lower stakes, blackjack tables, hugely social, all the casino games with jackpots and the stat poker. So I think you can probably take advantage of the technology that will develop for online, because we don't have those default opportunities to take this experience further. But you've got sort of the real abilities to make the experience social in your properties. And then if you're looking for ideas to take it further, you can always get some services from my consultancy. I'll happily advise.
There's one thing I've seen in Las Vegas. So you have this island of slot. You have one customer playing, and then when another one sits next to him, there's this little jackpot marquee that lights up, and you have a small jackpot that's up here. It's very small, it's nothing. And if a third one sits next, the jackpot is growing. And if a fourth one, the jackpot is growing. So basically, it's promotes the fact that the more you play on this island, the bigger the jackpot's going to be. And I find that a very, very cool idea.
It is.
Okay. Eva, a question here was about responsible gaming, and I'd like to finish up by saying that I think that's a two-edged sword in terms of social. On the one hand, you have, I think social gambling experience is less addictive, at least myself. If I go into a casino and play and I'm with friends, I would have I would play much more responsible than if I was alone, perhaps. But on the other hand, there is a flip side of that, affiliates and marketing has always been sort of pushing the boundaries for what's allowed and not allowed regulation-wise, I think. And you don't want to sit there and follow and have a streamer that is encouraging you to chase your losses, market your operator, and so forth. So you need to work with serious professional guys like Tobias here. And so watch the space and think about what you do and which impact it is having. Social influence is a very strong mechanic. So word of caution.
Okay,
great. This is key. We have online training courses for our streamers focusing on RG, and as influencers, you have a huge responsibility as well. So for all our competitors that might not be focusing, please step up your game.
Okay, great. I think this is a really good point to finish up with and wrap up with. Thank you, Tobias, Thomas, Alex, Steve, Robin, for your participation. A special thank you to Carolina for leading on this webinar and actually preparing it as well, assembling this amazing panel. A big thank you to our audience for participating, even though we have taken a little bit more than an hour of your time. As I mentioned at the beginning, the webinar will be available as a recording, so you will be able to go back to it, re-listen, and also share with your colleagues. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Thanks, guys.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.